Well, welcome back. It's good to be back with you. My name is Mark French. I'm a professor at Purdue University. I design guitars, build guitars, and play them a little. I'd like to tell you about this one. This is a flamenco guitar I made in a master class a few years back, and it's a really interesting example of flamenco guitars. I thought you might want to know about them. So let's start with, what exactly is a flamenco guitar? Well, flamenco guitar is closely related to a classical guitar. Now, flamenco music is fast and has a lot of really fast notes in it. And so a flamenco guitar is designed to be lighter and more responsive than a classical guitar. Now, flamenco players play on classical guitars all the time, so it's not a hard and fast thing. So the design of the guitar reflects not only the music, but the players. Now, the average flamenco player didn't have a lot of money, so flamenco guitars were originally designed to be inexpensive. They're made usually out of cypress, which at the time was an inexpensive wood in Spain. Well, it's not inexpensive now, but it was then. Little things like the heel here, the heel stack, only has 3 pieces in it rather than 4 to keep the cost down. The thing most people will notice is instead of tuning machines up here, it has tuning pegs. Other than that, it plays and acts kind of like a classical guitar. To the untrained eye, it's going to look pretty much exactly like a classic guitar. Now, these guitars are light. They are really light. I weighed this one a few minutes ago. It weighs 1,352 grams, so it's just about 3 pounds even. This is one of the lightest guitars I've ever played, and when you play it, it feels like you're holding a living thing in your arms. It's great. It's very responsive. It's got a nice, rich tone. I love it. So let me tell you how I made it and some of the changes I made to it that separate it from the run-of-the-mill flamenco guitars. Now, I made it in a master class taught by a Spanish master luthier named Paco Chorobo. Paco is a really good flamenco player and a very, very good builder. If you want to learn to make flamenco guitars or classical guitars, or you just want one, talk to Paco. You'll be happy you did. Now, the class was held in Colorado, and it was held in the shop of Robbie O'Brien, another master luthier. Again, if you want to talk to a real good luthier, go talk to Robbie. You'll be glad you did. So let me tell you about this particular instrument. Now, this is a style called a Flamenco Blanca. Blanca is the Spanish word for white, and it uses all light wood. As I told you, the back and the sides are cypress, and I hadn't worked with cypress before, but it's really cool stuff. The crazy part is when you get it hot to bend it, I thought it smelled kind of like popcorn. I thought it smelled great. So the binding is all cedar, and then it has red veneer in it. So the binding is this really cool pattern, and there's a black stripe in between the light cypress binding and the cypress back. So it's very classic. It looks pretty cool. The neck and the headstock are made out of Spanish cedar, which is a very light wood, probably related to Western red cedar. Really easy to carve. It's great stuff. The bridge is made out of pau ferro, as is the head plate up here, and the neck is ebony. Now, originally, we put ebony tuning pegs in it, just plain old wooden pegs like you'd see in a violin. Well, I'm not the kind of guy who'll leave well enough alone just because something works great. So I replaced the ebony pegs with geared tuning pegs. They look like the wood ebony tuning pegs, but they have an internal planetary gear mechanism in it. So they're geared down. I think these are like 4-to-1 or 6-to-1. The brand of these is called Peg Heads. There's another brand called Wittner from Germany. The rosette here is one that was provided to us. Paco bought them somewhere, probably off of Stumac or Luthier's Mercantile. Probably Luthier's Mercantile now that I think about it. Because the guitar is light, and the string tension is low, it doesn't need a truss rod. So there's no truss rod in this neck. There's a nice scarf joint up here, and we did everything by hand. The only power tools we used were for thickness sanding the top and back and sides, and we used a router to route the binding ledges, but everything else was done by hand. Then when the neck blank was tapered, I tapered that by hand with a plane. Now, I made some other modifications to this instrument. flamenco and classical guitars typically have a flat fretboard. Well, this one doesn't. I'm not a great player. I need all the help I can get. So I put a 20-inch radius on this. It's not quite flat. It's got just enough radius so I have a little easier time barring chords and playing it. I mentioned how light this guitar is. I was impressed at how strong this guitar is. When we put the binding on it, we used a white cotton tape to hold the binding tight while the glue dried. We used 100 feet of it and wrapped it up. It looked like a mummy. And I was just awestruck at how tight that tape got. It twanged when you were done. I thought this thing would just smash into a million pieces, and it didn't. It's got a 5-brace fan pattern in the soundboard, and that's holding up fine too. Again, bearing up very nicely under string loads. Here's the thing. The top of this guitar is about 0.85 inches, which is about 2.2 millimeters. That's a lot thinner than certainly on a steel string guitar, and even on thinner than a lot of classical guitars. To make the point, a little while ago I stuck a LED flashlight in the guitar and turned the lights off. Here's what it looked like. All right, try that with your Martin D28 and see what happens. So it's very light, it's very responsive. Love this guitar. Now another neat feature of the guitar is the bridge. Now most classical bridges, or flamenco bridges, have 6 holes drilled through the tie block here, and the strings are just tied on. This one has 12 holes in it, so every string goes through the tie block here a couple of times and pulls tight on the end. So there's absolutely no way the strings on this are going to slip on this end. Now the last thing to tell you about on this guitar is the finish. In class, we put a light French polish on it just to get it home, to protect it enough for traveling. Now French polishing uses a cotton pad and very, very thin shellac. It's mostly alcohol with just a little bit of shellac in it, and you get that pad just damp so that when you rub it on, what you're really rubbing on is almost shellac vapor, and it takes approximately forever to do a really good true French polish. When I finished this up, I used a little bit damper pad, and so it built a little faster. So it's hand padded. Is it French polish? It's close enough. It's approximately French polished. And you can see, it's got a nice shine to it. Now, I'm going to need to practice to be really master level, but this isn't too bad. I like it. I think it turned out well. So shellac is a very light finish. It's got very low damping, and it doesn't change the tone of the guitar any. So it's a good finish to use on an instrument this light. So here it is. This is a flamenco guitar. Love it. Hope you like it too. We'll talk to you next time.